next honorable mention... yeah. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my favorite audiobooks right now. So it is NEWTs time, and with it being that time of the year, it is high gear for reading. And for me, that means lots of audiobooks. So I've been listening to a lot in the past couple of weeks, and it's got me really thinking about what are some of the things that I like a lot about audiobooks, and what are some of the audiobooks that I like a lot. So I went through my books and some of the recent reads, and I looked at the top 5 books that I would consider my top 5 audiobooks right now, and just noticed some things in common, so I thought I would just go through and show you guys my top 5 audiobooks right now. So number 5 on that list for me is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. I listened to this one sometime last year. I read it for either the Owls or the Newts, I don't remember. This one is really hard for me to describe because the reason I like it is a spoiler at the end, and I was talking to my roommate at the time, Lauren, because she'd also read this book, and she didn't notice some kind of structural things that they did in this book that I only knew because of the way the audiobook was. So this is primarily told from one point of view, but they do switch points of view for one chapter, and with that is a different narrator. They have a different narrator come in and do that chapter, and I just liked it because it made sense for the way that it is structured. And like I said, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it if anyone hasn't read the ending of it. But yeah, there's definitely something that happens in the end as far as the structure goes, and having that need for another narrator that is kind of based on the rest of the book. So I really, really liked that. I liked having that extra oomph, and so just listening to it was great. And the 2 narrators were amazing. So I have this one on repeat. It's so great. So definitely one of my favorites. So number 4 on this list for me is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt's Commander, aka J.K. Rowling. And I love this one so much. It's super short. It's like an hour and a half maybe, but it is read by the guy who plays Newt's Commander in the movies, and he just goes through and talks about all of these different beasts, and it's basically just a textbook. It's just a bunch of beasts, but the way that they describe them, there's also sound effects with them, which makes it this really, wholesome, well-rounded experience. It was so great. It's still one of, my favorite audiobooks, experiences that I can think of. So the 3rd on this list is actually a duology, and I don't have my copies of it because my brother-in-law is actually reading them, but that is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, that duology. I loved this audiobook because they're pretty chunky books, so it's really nice to get through, but also because there's such a wide range of characters, they have different people for every single character, which just gave it a better, wholesome experience. And some of the characters had accents and some of them didn't, and so that just kind of gave it an extra thing. And also there's a lot of terminology in this book that Leigh Bardugo has where I would have said it wrong or I would have pronounced it wrong, and I think in my copy of Crooked Kingdom it's actually got a pronunciation guide in the back, so that definitely helps while you're reading. But just listening to it and having them already know what you're talking about, so you don't have to kind of question that, it definitely helps a lot. But having that kind of full cast experience just gave it this extra oomph, and I really liked getting to know each character because they were so different, and each narrator did it that kind of way, a different way. So the second one on this list is also one that I do not own, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers, I believe. And this was so great. It's definitely one of those books that I don't think I would have appreciated as much if I had just read it, but because I was listening to the audiobook of it, it definitely gave me this wholesome, well-rounded experience. You're going to notice that I've definitely said that a lot already, so that's an indication of what I like. So it is supposed to be partially in this podcast format, so that was really, really great because you're actually listening to this podcast. You have different people, a full cast doing this podcast. You've got sound effects. You've got, if they're on the phone, they kind of sound muffled, so you can kind of hear that they're on the phone. So I just loved it. It's definitely one of those stories that hits you right in the heart. It's not a fun tale, but because they had this fully produced kind of podcast as part of it, that definitely helped a lot. So I really enjoyed Sadie that so much, and I'm not sure I would have enjoyed that book as much as if I had just read it. I think I would have liked it, but I don't think I would have liked it as much if I had just read it and not listened to the audiobook. So that was definitely a big one for me. I know a lot of booktubers have said multiple times that is definitely one that the audiobook is the route to go if you can. And I highly agree. That's definitely the way to go about this book. So before I get to my number one on this list, I just wanted to make some quick honorable mentions because I do have a few. So the first one is actually the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. I love these audiobooks. I've only listened to the first 3, and I'm talking about the Jim Dale ones, and they are so great. I really, really enjoy them, but they're not quite up to my top 5 standards because they are fun to listen to, but that's just because Jim Dale has this like really wholesome voice. And I've heard him do the Harry Potter series, and I heard him do Peter and the Starcatchers, the first book in that series, and they were so different. Like, he has to do so many characters, especially for Peter and the Starcatchers. I mean, there's a lot of characters in here, but Peter and the Starcatchers had, like, so many, and a lot of them were pirates, so I expected a lot of them to sound the same, but you could definitely tell that they were all different people, and he can definitely do that with this one, too. He just has one of those narration styles that it's so good when he comes to characters, and he can still make it sound awesome and make me know exactly who he's talking about, but only by saying a certain line in that voice, not even saying that person's name. So the next honorable mention that I have today is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This one was definitely one that I think, at least for me, benefited from me listening to it instead of just simply reading it. It is quite a chunky book, but I know a lot of people who said they just read it. It was very easy to get through. For me, it was mostly the world and the terminology in this world, because I would have said almost everything in this book wrong. I would have been, I had a whole different pronunciation in my head than what was said in the audiobook. And so I think that really helped a lot, and I definitely will be listening to her sequel, which is coming out soon, on audiobook, because it definitely helped me a lot. So I really, really, really enjoyed that. And my last honorable mention is only because his voice is the most amazing thing on the face of the planet, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. And the guy who does this audiobook, I can't think of his name right now, but it's the guy who plays Tom Riddle in the second Harry Potter movie, and by God, his voice is butter. I could listen to him all day. Like, this is the audiobook that I always have on me, because I could listen to this falling asleep. His voice is amazing. I don't care what he's saying. I will listen to it. It is so great. And then, of course, there's, also the great stuff of, Monty in this book is really, really witty, and he just plays that really well in the audiobook and in the narration. It's just a wholesome read, and definitely one of my guiltier audiobooks that I don't care what happens, I want to listen to it. And now it's time for my favorite audiobook of all time. This is a series. Oh, wait, while you try to guess it. It is the Illuminae Files series. I freaking love these audiobooks because they are such a well-rounded experience. These books are so interesting because they are, mixed media format, and there's a lot of, paperwork and things of that nature that are in here. And the audiobooks just make it so much fun because it's full cast, it's got sound effects, it's got, all of these things where pages look like a hot mess and you just want to flip through them, but it makes sense when you actually listen to the audiobook. So I will sound like a parrot because I've definitely said this before, and I know many other booktubers have also said this, but if you can read these and listen to the audiobook at the same time, do it. It is so worth it. This is definitely one of those series that you can't just listen to, or you can't just read. It's so great. I read the first one without the audiobook, and it was great, and I loved it so much. But then I read the Gemina and Obsidio, the second two, with an audiobook, and it just made it such a more fun experience that I want to go back and reread the first one with an audiobook, because it's just so much fun. You get so immersed inside this sci-fi world, and this is really the reason that I started reading sci-fi a lot last year. It's definitely not one of the genres that I tend to lean towards, but this series definitely made me kind of start reading a lot more sci-fi. These are my number ones, and there's 3 of them because they go together. Read them, please. You'll thank me later. That is it. Those are the top 5 plus a few honorable mentions as far as audiobooks go. Now, this list could definitely change in the future, and I might update it in the future, but as of right now, these are definitely my favorites right now. I don't see the Illuminae series going anywhere anytime soon. That one, I think, is probably going to stay my number 1 for a very long time. you kind of have to be amazing to outrank that one. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, if any of these are some of your favorites, if you've listened to them. And let me know what your favorite audiobook is if you do read or listen to audiobooks. I always like learning what everybody else likes. Looking back on mine, I can tell that I like full cast recordings and I like the immersive experience. So that was definitely fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to be part of this awesome family we've got going on over here. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!